Hi, could you please first give me your name, position, and age?
My name is Devin League. I am I guess you would call the Student Ministries Director here at University Church, and I am 25 years old.
All right, thank you. My first question would be, what would you define leadership as?
Leadership, really, in its most basic sense, is influence. It's just, no matter if it's in ministry in a church or in an organization, a business, where you're the person who's in charge. But really, what that means is that you're the one influencing people. Your decisions influence them in what direction that the group is headed, and so you're the one that is kind of steering the ship, making the decisions, putting out the vision, and guiding and influencing where it is headed.
All right, and what does it mean to be a leader?
A leader, in this context, in ministry, is really the person who God has placed over the ministry, over the group, over the children or the youth or the church or whatever aspect of ministry you're involved in. The leader is the person that God has placed there and is using to accomplish what he wants to accomplish in that specific thing, and that can look like a lot of different things. But it's the leader is the person who's doing the influencing, who's making the decisions, who's in charge of the group.
All right. If you could say there was one thing that kind of surprised you that you didn't expect was going to happen when you started in leadership here at the church, what would that be?
I think it is just probably the amount of flexibility that you have to have in ministry. When I started out as just youth pastor, and so even that, before you get into ministry full time, you kind of have this mindset that okay, being a minister means you're going to preach the lessons primarily every week. You're teaching, you're preaching, and then interacting with people, of course. But what I didn't really think through is that there are other aspects to ministry. You're the one putting up chairs sometimes, and you're the one taking down tables and other things. And as my time here has gone on, I've taken on other roles, taken over the children's area, being over other things. And so you get this idea kind of that, you're the person in the public aspect of the ministry, teaching, preaching, and those things that we tend to associate mostly with ministry. But there's also a lot of behind the scenes stuff that you do that you don't really know about, that once you're in it, you're like, okay, now this is my job, this is my responsibility, and it kind of takes on a whole new life.
All right. What would be something that, not necessarily didn't, like I said, was surprising the last question?
Mm-hmm.
This would be more something that you didn't expect altogether about leadership, that was something that was different from what you previously thought of.
Yeah. Before you get into ministry, obviously you're a Christian if you're preparing to go into ministry. And so when you're in that, you really are only thinking about your walk with God. You're thinking about, okay, I need to be in the Word, I need to be praying, I want to be growing closer to God. But what you don't think about in ministry is that pouring out of yourself takes a lot out of you. When you're preaching, when you're teaching, when you're investing in others' lives, it's really rewarding, but spiritually it can take its toll on you, and so it can kind of wear you out spiritually. And if you don't really focus on refilling yourself, you can get really tired. And so that's something that you don't really think about. You're like, okay, if you're just in your walk with Jesus, we want to spend our time in the Word and things like that. But when you're in ministry, it's like amplified even more because you're draining yourself of what you're pouring in. So you have to continuously be pouring into yourself, being poured into by others, being pastored yourself while you pastor others. And so that's something that was kind of something that kind of caught me off guard, that I wasn't really expecting, that you need to be sure, you need to be very intentional about your personal time with God so that you have that constant flow coming in you so that you can in turn be effective in pouring out into others.
All right. As you are, earlier on in leadership, what are some things that you're now looking forward to for the future of leadership that is coming over the next few years?
Yeah. My favorite thing is just as you continue going on, you begin to feel a little bit better about it. Coming into it, I didn't have any experience, didn't really have any knowledge about what to do. But as I go along, it's like learning more, and so that's been a fun process. But what I look forward to in the coming years is to, after people have gone through our ministry, after we've poured all that we can into these students' lives, years down the road when they have families and things like that, to see them still in the faith, see them still pursuing Jesus and raising godly families, that's what I look forward to, is seeing the gospel really affect people's lives, and really shape them and who they become in the coming years, and to see that God has used us to be a part of that, and that's the greatest privilege of ministry, is being used of God in order to have the gospel shape people's lives.
All right. And if you could give any quick advice for someone that was going to be in leadership, something that you wish you may have known as you started it.
Pray. Something my grandpa told me before I got into ministry. He's been in ministry for years. That really stuck with me, and is really great advice, is if you can do anything else, do it. Ministry it's not something that's easy. It's not something that you should just jump into because you want to, be cool or be seen and in front of people. It's not for someone who is looking for that. It's really hard. It can be lonely, and so if you can do something else, do that. But if it's something that, if you can't escape that calling, if you can't picture yourself doing anything but this, that's what you're to do, and that's really what God wants you to do. So just pray about it, be for sure, and then continue to pray through the whole thing. Prayer is really what ministry is, what holds your ministry up.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty. Hi. So first question I have is going to be your name, age, and what position you have.
My name is Mike Eddy. I will soon be 60 years old. I am the senior pastor at University Assembly of God Church here in Waxahachie.
Thank you. So the first question I want to ask is, what is leadership?
Leadership, I think John Maxwell said, he that thinketh he leadeth and hath no followers only taketh a walk. So obviously, leadership is the ability to influence others, in a word.
All right. And what does being a leader mean to you? Like, more than just, having a leadership role or something, but being a leader.
Well, words come to mind of the Apostle Paul. He said, "Be ye followers of me as I also am a follower of Christ." Paul was establishing churches among the Gentile nations, and he knew that if he was going to convert them, that they needed to be discipled, and in order to be discipled, they had to imitate him in spiritual matters especially. So leadership is obviously instructing, leading, encouraging people in a certain path.
All right. So as you've been a leader over the years, is there anything that has been different about being a leader that maybe you didn't think of before you were a leader?
It's been so long since I was not pastoring that I will have to think way back. But one thing that I encourage people that are considering leadership in this context, pastoral ministry.
Yeah.
How well do you handle criticism and sometimes rejection? Because that is a part of leadership that is especially unappealing to certain personality traits, like the melancholy temperament, for instance.
Yeah.
And so, how well do you deal with criticism, rejection? Are you a visionary? Do you know where you want to go? Do you know where you want to lead people? Do you have clear direction from the Lord? Where does He want your church to go? What does He want your church to look like?
Right.
These vision, the ability to handle criticism, rejection, some of the more serious, I guess, things that you need to consider.
All right. When you look back over the years of ministry that you've been a part of, is there any one area that you can identify and say, I wish I did something different there? something.
Absolutely. um, I don't really know how to say this.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I'm not going to talk about that.
Fair
I'm
enough.
sorry.
No, I understand. I understand.
I know that the tape is rolling, but there are numerous things in correcting. You know, the Apostle Paul said to Timothy, he said, exhort, he said, rebuke and reprove.
Mm-hmm.
Exhorting is enjoyable, but reproving and rebuking are not enjoyable. And one thing that I try to keep in consideration is when I have to correct someone. Jesus said, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Have the right spirit in correcting people when they're in the wrong. I'm sure that there's times that I have done that wrong, and
Mm-hmm.
I would regret that and want to learn from it and
All right.
do a better job next time.
All right. Is there any last minute or last bit of advice that you would have for someone before they go into leadership of things that they should be aware of?
Well, in my particular context, as a leader of a church, of course, divine calling is essential.
Mm-hmm.
Don't even attempt it if you don't have a divine call on your life. And because when the difficulties come, this is going to be your point of reference.
Yeah.
I remember the time, I remember the place that God called me.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are certain that you are in the center of God's will, then the setbacks should not sink you.
All right.
So I would say keep in strict focus your calling.
All right. And as you're going to continue on as a leader, what's like something that you're looking forward to as you continue on over the next few years?
Well, I'm looking forward to the new year coming in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
And we have instituted a ministry called the Care Ministry, which divides our congregation up among care ministers. Each one has 5 families or 5 individuals that they